War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Jungle Show. Thank y'all for joining us for another edition here today. Today is going to be my favorite episode always. This time of year is the best time of year. We've been talking about it on all of our previous episodes, especially leading up to this one. We are here to talk about March Madness. Today was Selection Sunday. When you'll be listening to this, it'll be the Monday after. So it's time to fill out your brackets and get ready for the Madness here in March. I'm excited. I know my co-host and dad is excited as well. We're here to talk about it, talk about the bracket, talk about where Auburn is, what's Auburn's path, what could be Auburn's success, and what could be Auburn's enemy here coming up in this bracket. Talk about some possible upsets and maybe some of the other matchups and predict who we are going to have in Houston in April for the Final Four. Just like I said, to do that, to talk about this bracket, I brought in my dad and co-host again. Dad, thank you for joining me. Sorry we weren't able to do a show after the Arkansas game, after Auburn lost their first-round matchup after the Arkansas game. Didn't really want to do that, but as you can see, I'm a little red. I just got back from the beach off of spring break, but now I'm ready to roll because it's March Madness time.
It is the best sporting event of the year every year.
For sure.
It's a take time off of work Thursday, Friday type of day. Yes, I'm glad we didn't talk about the Arkansas game. Although I think Auburn played well, just had to fight back from too big of a hole.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad to have you back from the beach. I'm ready to talk about March Madness. Doesn't get any better.
Me too. I've been waiting so long for this. So last year Auburn came in as a 2 seed, lost in the second round to the 7 or the 10 seed, or they may have been a 7 seed Miami Hurricanes, and then we ended up with a crazy Final Four with Villanova and Kansas and Duke and North Carolina, and it was just it's always the best sporting event, just like you said. But I'm excited to talk about it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So the first thing we just want to talk about, obviously today was Selection Sunday. Here is the bracket. I think the committee did a really, really good job with this bracket. I think they are very, we'll kind of go through and talk about some of the examples of this, but they really, really were smart with putting those teams, those big market teams in those marketplaces to make that money, put butts in seats. We'll talk about that even when we talk about Auburn, because
they got some of my money.
Oh yeah. They know they knew what they were doing with that. So,
yes, they did.
But that's the bracket. We're going to go through each individual region, talk about the region, talk about some matchups, some first round games that we like. Could possibly talk about some other matchups that we could see down the line. Talk a little bit about pass, maybe upsets, and a few teams that we want to talk about. But first, let's start obviously in the top right with none other than Auburn's region, the Midwest region. So the 1 seed in this region, the Houston Cougars, 31-3, a really incredible season. One of their losses coming to the number 1 overall 1 seed, the Alabama Crimson Tide. In this region, I think it's a really, really open region in my perspective, because I do not think Houston is as good as advertised, especially with the injury to Marcus Sasser, their top guard. But that's where the Auburn Tigers reside. Auburn will be playing at 5:50 Central Time on Thursday night in Birmingham, Alabama, at Legacy Arena against the Iowa Hawkeyes, to play against probably the Houston Cougars in Birmingham on Saturday. So coming off of this SEC first round loss, coming off of the Tennessee game to end in the regular season in Neville Arena, the big win to lock Auburn into this NCAA tournament, what does Auburn have to do against Iowa, who has some really, really good scores, really, really good offense, like Chris Murray, the brother of former 5th overall pick last year, Keegan Murray, against a team like Iowa? What does Auburn have to do to advance to round number 2?
Well, you've got to stop Chris Murray. He's their best player, and it's not really that close. They have another kid, number 11, I think, that's a good player. They're very good on offense.
Yep.
McCaffrey's a very good offensive tactician type of coach. They run a lot of sets. They are not as good on defense. They're kind of average on defense. A couple things about this matchup that are intriguing. Number one, it's in Birmingham. To get an 8 or a 9 seed and get to play 2 hours from your campus, that place is going to be full. I mean, we bought tickets. We're in the upper deck.
We're going. Yep.
We're going.
I'm excited.
We're going to be in the building.
Yes.
The other really cool thing is that's where Bruce Pearl cut his teeth coaching. Yeah. He worked under Dr. Tom Davis there. He and McCaffrey consider each other friends. He recruited Murray's dad at Iowa.
Wow.
So kind of really cool connections there, especially for Bruce Pearl. He gets to play against the team that he loved. And he mentioned in his presser this evening, Iowans and Alabamians are very similar.
Yeah.
Hardworking, good, salt of the earth type of people. We're going to have to hate them for a week.
That's right.
Can Auburn win? Absolutely. They play like they did against Tennessee. You have to push the ball up and down the floor. I think you push it as fast as you can, and you defend the three. Make sure they don't get hot from three. This team was down 13 with a little bit over a minute left against Michigan State.
Came back and
won that game in overtime.
Yeah,
because they hit guarded, hand in the face threes, and they can do that. They're not an overly athletic team, not an overly tall team.
Yeah,
their center's about 6'9", 6'10". So their guards are bigger, which scares me a little bit for Wendell, but they're not very good defensively. They'll play different defenses. They'll play man. They'll play 2-3. They'll press some, but I think we run on them.
I agree. I think I like the ability to run on this team. I do agree they're not very, very good on the defensive end, like a lot of those Big 12. I believe they're Big 12. Big 10. A lot of those Big 10 teams have been really, really good defensively this year.
We played one.
Northwestern. There you go. We scored 43 points on them. They're a very, very good defensive team. Iowa hasn't been as good defensively this year as they've been in the past when they had Luka Garza and last year when they had Keegan Murray.
Yeah,
but their biggest player this year is 6'9". The biggest player on the roster is 6'9". I think as much as you have to run on this Iowa team, Janai Brewer, Jalen Williams, and Dylan Cardwell have to find the ball in the post, have to find the ball in ways that they can score, and it's going to be up to the guards to get them in that position against taller guards like Wendell and Zepp and KD. It's going to be up to them against taller guards to get them Janai and Jalen in scoring positions, because I think we could have a real opportunity to have a breakout game for someone like Janai or someone like Jalen in this game, especially considering the way that those two have been playing.
And let me give a key that hurt us against Arkansas. You got to rebound the basketball.
No kidding.
They may not be tall, but this team is a really good offensive rebounding team.
Yep.
So all five have to get the ball on the defensive end. You got
to crash the glass, got to box out. Yeah,
got to rebound.
Yeah, 100%. So talking a little bit about Auburn here again. So if Auburn were to beat Iowa on Thursday afternoon, they would then move to Saturday to play against Houston, I am assuming.
Yes.
That miraculous happens from Northern Kentucky in Birmingham on Saturday. Now, this Houston team is very, very interesting to me, especially with a matchup with either Iowa or Auburn. But in Auburn's case here, this Houston team, with the injury to Marcus Sasser's hamstring, their top guard, with some of the past games that they've had, specifically that Alabama game where they kind of just folded at home at the end, and Alabama just kept scoring.
That was a great game.
It was a fantastic basketball game.
Yeah.
But if Auburn goes and beats Iowa, what do they have to do against Houston to advance to the Sweet 16?
Hope Sasser's hurt. It's hard to come back from a hamstring injury, and that looked I don't know if you saw it, but like he did the split. He slipped on a wet spot on the floor and did the splits, and it did not look pleasant.
Yeah.
Hamstring's really hard to come back. They didn't play him today on purpose, and Memphis beat them for the championship of that league.
That's right.
But Houston is very good defensively, and they've got a kid that was between us and Houston.
Jarris Walker.
Jarris Walker can flat out play. He's about 6'9", and can shoot from outside or go inside. And you talk about having to rebound. We rebound like we did against Arkansas. They would blow us out of the building.
Yeah.
They're really good. Although without Sasser, they're a little bit off, and they've got another good point guard. Their point guard's fantastic.
Jamal Shedd is his name.
Shedd is fantastic.
He was absolutely fantastic in the Alabama game, which both Brandon Miller and Marcus Sasser, who were like the headlines of that day on that Sunday game.
Shedd took over. Yep.
Yeah. Sasser played terrible and Miller played terrible. And Jamal Shedd played absolutely outstanding, but it was just Alabama's depth down the stretch that won them that game. But Houston, not a very deep team, but a very, very big and powerful team. The guy you mentioned, Jarris Walker, between Auburn and Houston, he is big, strong, powerful, mean,
athletic.
They've got other guys like that. They've got good, experienced guards, especially if Sasser was able to play. That would be a really, really tough and intriguing matchup if Auburn were to beat Iowa and advance to that second round. But I think it's a doable game. I think there are other one seeds that I was scared of playing in terms of Auburn having that 8-9 matchup. If we were to win that game, you play against a one seed. You couldn't play against Alabama. That wasn't an option. Alabama was going to be a one seed, but that was not an option for us to play because we played them twice already.
Yep.
The other one seeds being Purdue and Kansas. I would much rather play Houston out of those three. I would much rather play Houston out of those three because those three are less of blue chip prospects, and they're they have holes in their game. I think Kansas, if they're on, you're just not going to beat them.
No,
you've got to just pray that they're off. Purdue, good luck stopping Zach Edey. I mean, the dude's 7'4", and he's just going to turn around and dunk it on you. If Purdue misses an outside shot, he's going to get the ball and lay it back up.
Yeah.
So I did not want to play either of those two. So if you just had to pick, I would pick Houston. And I think Auburn got a really, really good draw. If Auburn were to get to the Sweet 16 after upsetting a number one seed like Houston, playing against somebody like Miami, Drake, Kent State, or Indiana would be an interesting matchup at that Sweet 16 spot. Obviously, Miami being the team that knocked you out last year, I think that would be interesting. I think Indiana is very intriguing. The matchup between Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Williams and Janai Brown will be very, very cool.
Yeah.
And then later down this bracket, I really love talking about matchups. I think the best matchup in the entire first round of this NCAA tournament is that Texas A&M versus Penn State 7-10 matchup in Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, not only that, but Texas and Colgate, you may get to see Texas A&M versus Texas. I mean, they love each other. Yeah. I love that Texas A&M Penn State matchup.
Yeah,
I think I have Texas A&M winning the game. I think it's a little dumb that they're a 7 seed. I expected them to be a 5 seed or something like that after coming in second in the SEC in the regular season and then making it to the SEC final. I expected them to be a little higher, but that's a very intriguing matchup to me. What do you see outside of Auburn and Iowa in this matchup, and even the Birmingham region? What do you see in the Midwest that really catches your eye?
Couple things. I love the Texas A&M Penn State. I think that's a great matchup. I think A&M wins, and then the Texas Colgate, which, by the way, Auburn played 6 non-conference teams that are in this bracket. We went 3-3 against them. One of them was Colgate. Colgate's got shooters, but they're not going to beat Texas.
Yeah.
So Texas against Texas A&M, like you said, they hate each other.
Yeah.
It's an Auburn-Alabama type of hate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
just each other.
I mean, if you really don't understand the Texas versus Texas A&M rivalry, just wait till they get into the SEC in 2 years.
They hate each other,
especially in football. Just wait. It's going to be like when I think of rivalries when I think of rivalries in the SEC, I think of Auburn, Alabama, obviously number one. And I think just below that, I probably think Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Georgia, and maybe Mississippi State, Ole Miss. This Texas versus Texas A&M will blow those out of the water.
Oh,
it will be number two in the SEC behind there.
Number two. Yes. Yeah, they hate each other. It'd be fun to see that basketball game. The only thing better was if it was like in Dallas or somewhere like that. It's in Des Moines. It's up in Iowa.
Poor Iowa.
So
you also got to feel for Houston in this. Like, I mean, you talk about, you can see another Auburn-Houston matchup in Birmingham. That kind of scares me after what happened in the Birmingham Bowl last year.
We had a potato farmer for a head coach. Stop.
Yeah, but Auburn, that gives such an advantage to Auburn in this region, in Birmingham, in Legacy Arena, where Bruce Pearl has not lost at all there.
It'd be fun to get to Auburn.
I mean, St. Louis, he beat St. Louis, and he beat UAB 3 times there.
Mm-hmm.
So it could happen.
If you've not been to the new improved Legacy Arena, by the way, go see it. It's an NBA arena. Yeah. I know we don't have an NBA team. We have a G League team
in Birmingham.
But what they did with the interior of that arena, it looks like you're going into Phillips Arena in Atlanta or some of these other NBA cities. So it's a good arena, great arena for basketball. I hope Auburn plays well. I just hope Auburn plays well. If we play well, I think we can beat Iowa.
For sure.
Then we'll have to play really, really well to have a chance to beat Houston. They're 1 seed for a reason. They're very good.
Yeah.
They're very good, very athletic.
Yeah, they're 31-3. That says it right there. Yeah. They have really, really good wins. They came in second in their conference tournament and won their conference in the regular season. They're very athletic. They have shooters. They have 2 first-round prospects, just like Auburn had last year. In Jarris Walker will be top 10, and Marcus Sasser, if he's not injured, will probably be top 20, top 30. Will be first round.
Oh, yeah. I could see him going in the lottery, top 17, 16.
Yeah, I could see it too. So let's talk about the rest of this bracket. Let's go down just below in the bracket. We just did the top right, the Midwest. Let's go down.
So we can get our Final Four matchup.
So we can, let's talk about Auburn's Final Four matchup. Yeah, exactly. Let's actually predict this before we move on to the West. Who do you have coming out of the Midwest in your Final Four?
The Midwest, what we are on now?
Yes.
I gotta be honest, I haven't filled out a bracket.
Slacking.
It would not surprise me to see Texas come out. I think they're playing really well. They beat the ever-loving junk out of Kansas the other day.
Yep.
So it wouldn't surprise me. I think that guy has done a fantastic job taking over that program after they fired their head coach.
Yeah,
Texas got hired at Ole Miss, by the way.
Yes, Texas is a very interesting case in this bracket and in this tournament because of what happened to them mid-season with Chris Beard getting fired.
Yeah.
I really do like Houston to come out of this. I think it'd be an absolute awesome matchup with Auburn in Birmingham in the second round, or an awesome matchup with Iowa if Auburn's not able to get it done. I think, but just down the line, I think if Houston is able to get out of Birmingham and escape Auburn, I think Houston runs the table with this and heads to Houston for the Final Four.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Which would be something. I mean, they're going to complain about
they're having to play
Auburn and Birmingham, but if they get a home Final Four, they'll be fine.
They'll be all right.
So let's move down to the West region. So this is the region with Kansas and UCLA as the 1 and 2s. What matchup are you looking at immediately where you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe this could be an upset? Like, what do you see? What speaks to you from this West region?
All right, couple of things. Illinois, Arkansas, you always look at the 8-9 line because that's usually the closest matched 2 teams. So I think that'll be a fun game. I think that Iona, and the thing went off. Hang on, pull that back up.
Oh, okay.
The Iona UConn, I think Iona with Rick Pitino will win that game, and I think Iona will win the next game. and play Kansas to go to the Elite Eight.
Okay. Gotcha. I think you're just looking at my bracket because I just looked back at my bracket and had the exact same thing. But I really like the Arkansas-Illinois matchup here. Yeah. I like that matchup because of how good Arkansas is playing now, how good Illinois is playing now. But whenever they get to play a team like Kansas, after Kansas just took a drumming to Texas, I think that'll be a great game. I'm really excited about that. That's one of my favorite possible second-round matchups outside of maybe Texas A&M and Texas. I mean, that would be awesome. And then, just like you said, I have a 13 seed in the Sweet 16 in this with the Iona Gales, with Rick Pitino, who have not lost since like January 14th or something. Yeah. That would be an amazing Sweet 16 run. I think they got a good draw with UConn and then St. Mary's and VCU. I honestly think VCU wins that one. And then Iona will play Kansas in the Sweet 16. But at the bottom side of that bracket, there's some really interesting places here. Talk about UCLA and UNC Asheville playing in Sacramento. They know how to put the butts in the seats and favor one specific team.
Yeah.
So
they did it for us in Alabama.
Even Boise State and Northwestern. Like that's interesting. Playing in Sacramento, that's interesting. Really interested in that Northwestern and Boise State game as well. Boise State is playing really, really good right now. I don't know what's going on with these records on the bracket on the screen. I think somebody typed it over because Northwestern is definitely not
21 22. No, they are not.
And I don't know if anyone saw, but Texas A&M is not 25-0. If you're watching the YouTube version, we're talking about right now. If you're listening on the podcast, you have no idea what we're talking about. But so the brackets on the screen. So
I like
this region.
I like the Gonzaga Grand Canyon matchup, by the way.
Oh,
I
really?
don't think Grand Canyon is as bad as people would think. And I don't think Gonzaga is as good as they've been. Mm-hmm. Gonzaga probably wins, but I don't think that's a blowout.
Yeah, I could see it. So out of this region, who do you think not only comes out of the region, but who do you think surprises people? Obviously, we both said the Iona Gales are probably going to surprise people with Rick Pitino, the way they're playing. But who comes out of this region to play either, for me, Houston, for you, Texas in the Final Four?
I think it's going to be a rematch of the Texas-Kansas game. I think Kansas is going to walk through this region pretty easily.
I also have Kansas. I think any of the 1, 2, or 3 seeds can win this. I think UCLA could win
Doesn't UCLA have a guy that's hurt? That's important to them, somebody that's
Tiger Campbell actually may be hurt. I think he got hurt in the Arizona game and was the reason Arizona was able to win that Pac-12 tournament. But if they're healthy, UCLA is a very dangerous team. They were the team that was competing with somebody like Houston or Purdue
to
be the fourth number 1 seed. Yeah, so I think UCLA.
I don't think it's very nice to put them in the same region as Kansas.
I know for sure because I think Kansas is the best team in this region,
the best team in the country.
But you cannot count out the Gonzaga Bulldogs as well. They have shown that they have won. They can win non-conference games. They went and beat Alabama in Birmingham this past year. They've got players like Drew Timme, and you never can count them out. I have Kansas coming out of this tournament as well, but I think the 1, 2, or 3 can win this. But I really like getting a 13 seed in my Sweet 16 with the Iona Gales, though.
Yep.
So moving on, we're going to go up to the top left part of the bracket, the South region, with Alabama at the 1 seed and Arizona at the 2 seed. I think this is absolutely ridiculously favored towards Alabama in this bracket. I just don't. Outside of Arizona, I don't see a team that can beat Alabama in this bracket. There are some interesting matchups. I think we got multiple upsets in this bracket. I think West Virginia could easily beat Maryland, if you call that an upset, I guess. Charleston is a very, very good team, the same exact record as the number 1 seed Houston, 31-3, won their conference, also haven't lost in a long, long time. They could beat San Diego State. And Furman could beat Virginia as well. Virginia's not nearly as good as they've been in the past. NC State, Creighton's an interesting matchup. UC Santa Barbara is playing really good, playing against a kind of beat-up Baylor team. I think this is an interesting region. I think whoever comes out of this region, it's hard to say because I don't know. Because you never know. I think all 16 teams here, I guess outside, all 15 teams here outside of Texas A&M, College or Southeastern Missouri State or whatever, could win the whole region because you don't know which teams are going to show up.
Yeah,
especially with the first few seeds, Alabama, Arizona, Baylor, Virginia, San Diego State, Creighton, all 6 of those first 16, even Missouri, all those first 7 seeds have all played completely different in their past 10 games over different ways and against different opponents. You just don't know what kind of teams are going to show up. But out of this South region, what are some interesting matchups, maybe some upsets, and who do you think comes out to go to Houston, to go to the Final Four?
Okay, put it back up on the screen.
Okay.
So Alabama looked really good today. They were making their outside shots.
Yeah.
If they're making their outside shots, they're hard to beat. They haven't been making their outside shots before today. So I don't know what that's going to look like. They play in Birmingham. They're going to win the first 2 games, I think, and go to the Sweet 16 minimum. I think Charleston will beat San Diego State outright. San Diego State has to fly to Orlando to play a 31-3 Charleston team that it's hard to take seriously because they don't know. I mean, it's Charleston.
Yeah.
I think that's a 12-5. There's always a 12-5. I think that's a 12-5. The other one, I agree. I think Furman could beat Virginia. Yeah. Furman's a very good team. I watched them play against my UTC Mocs the other night, and Furman's very good. They have a good coach. They have players who went through the time last year when UTC hit a 30-footer to beat them at the final at the buzzer to go to the NCAA tournament, and they got left out. Well, their whole team basically said, "We're coming back. We're not.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Finished business to work on."
Yeah.
So I think they can play with Virginia. I don't mind that matchup at all. I still have Arizona coming out of this region now.
Interesting. I don't have Arizona coming out. I think again the top 3 seeds could do it, but I got the 3-seeded Baylor Bears coming out. I think if they play like they did in January, they will run through this region. They will blow out every single team that they come across because they're going to come across UC Santa Barbara, probably Creighton, maybe NC State, most likely Arizona, and most likely either Alabama, Virginia, San Diego State, or something like that. Yeah. So if they come across those teams, I think that's an easy road for them in the Final Four. If they play like they did in January, obviously the injury to Adam Flagler will kind of hinder them, but he's going to be back. That's the best backcourt in the country. This tournament is run through the guards. Keontae George and Adam Flagler are the best backcourt in the country. If they play like they did in January and get back to what they did, Baylor very easily could be cutting down the nets again.
I agree. And also going to Houston for the Final Four.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be bad for Baylor either.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's move on down to the East region, the last region, diagonal from Auburn's region in the Midwest, but this one, the East region. This one with Purdue and Marquette as the 1 and 2. Man, we were talking pre-show. I think this is my favorite region. I love the Midwest region with Auburn and the Texas A&M and Penn State. I think that's my favorite first round matchup and all. But this region is loaded. I mean, it is good, and I think any of the top 10 seeds could possibly win this tournament. Maybe not USC, maybe not 10, but top 9 could probably win this whole thing. So obviously, I think Purdue. The matchup with Memphis and Florida Atlantic is going to be fantastic. Obviously,
great matchup, by the way.
It's a fantastic. I think that's my second favorite one behind the Texas A&M Penn State. Yeah. It's such a good matchup.
Both those teams are playing well. By the way, Florida Atlantic has what's his name that played at Auburn on their coaching staff, KT Harrell.
KT Harrell, yeah, definitely.
And they're very good.
And then you move down to the Orlando region. You've got 2 awesome first-round matchups as well. with Duke playing last year's Cinderella Oral Roberts. I think that's an awesome matchup because of how well Duke's playing. And then Oral Roberts with Max Abmas, who came back, and they're going to be everyone's favorite to pick in their bracket because of what they did last year. I think that's a very cool 5-12 matchup. The Tennessee-Louisiana matchup is great as well because Tennessee's been so off and on recently, and now the injury to Zakai Ziegler could open the door for somebody like a really good Louisiana team.
Really good team.
And then you go down to the Greensboro region. You got Kentucky and Providence. Those are two teams kind of on an opposite slope, but Providence was able to get in from their conference tournament. I think Providence is a very, very good team. I think Kentucky's just playing better right now, even though the loss to Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament. And then Kansas State and Montana State, those are two very, very good teams as well. I mean, you just cannot go wrong with this whole entire region. You also got Tom Izzo playing against USC, a team that Auburn lost to by 3 earlier in the season, should have won. And then Marquette versus Vermont. I think that's I really, really like Marquette. I don't know how good they're going to be in this tournament. I love Shaka Smart. And I love
good coach. I do too. Yeah.
It's awesome. So looking at this one, I think this is my favorite region outside of the Midwest. Auburn's in the Midwest. So that's my favorite region, obviously. But just looking at this as a basketball fan and as an analyst perspective here, what do you see in this bracket?
All right. Number one, Kentucky going to Greensboro. That building will be dark blue.
Yep.
They'll have a lot more fans than anybody else in that building. K-State is very good. I don't know if they can beat Kentucky and the crowd. I think either Memphis or Florida Atlantic could beat Purdue. Purdue is going to depend on Zach Edey. He's very good. But this Memphis team is athletic. And watching them against Houston today, those guys fly around. We saw them. Their point guard ate us alive. What do you have, 30 in Atlanta against Auburn?
Yeah.
And I watched Florida Atlantic absolutely dismantle UAB the other night. A pretty darn good UAB team.
For sure.
So I'm really excited to see how that goes. I think Louisiana has a chance to beat Tennessee outright because I've just not been real impressed with Tennessee without Ziegler.
Yeah. They're missing him.
And I'm like you. I really like Marquette and the coach. I think Shaka, I liked him when he was at VCU. I enjoyed watching him at Texas. The guy can coach, and he's got Marquette playing as well as anybody. To see a Tom Izzo matchup with Shaka Smart in the second round would be a lot of fun. So I'm like you. I think there are a lot of good teams in this region. That Montana State team, by the way, is not a bad basketball team.
Yeah, very good. I think it's a very good Kansas State team in that first round. That's an interesting 3-14 matchup. So looking at this bracket, who do you think who do you think's in your Sweet 16, Elite 8, and advances to play in the Final Four in Houston?
Okay, pull it back up.
Okay.
Memphis will beat Purdue.
Wow.
Louisiana will get beat by Duke, and Memphis will beat Duke. Kentucky and K-State will be a really good game, but I think Kentucky would win in Greensboro, and I think Marquette would play Kentucky and beat Kentucky. I probably am taking another 2 seed here in Marquette coming out.
Okay, you went nearly opposite for me because I have Purdue beating Florida Atlantic in that second round. I have Oral Roberts beating Tennessee. I have Kentucky beating Montana State. And then I have Michigan State beating Marquette.
You enjoy picking the upsets.
I really went upset central in that one. I thought about doing the Louisiana over Tennessee, but I was like, okay, I can't do that much. I mean, that's a little much. And then in the Elite 8, I eventually have Purdue and Kentucky. I think that would be an awesome matchup between Oscar Tshiebwe and Zach Edey. That's like player of the year. It's like
Player of the year. The last two player of the year.
Last two
right?
player of the year, back to back, right there at center,
Okay,
going up against each other. That would be an awesome Elite Eight matchup. I think the committee really saw that. I'm going to go with Purdue though in that. So my Final Four would be Baylor versus Purdue, and then Houston versus Kansas, the 3-1 seeds and a 3 seed.
Okay. Okay.
What would your
I think
final?
what do I got? I got two seeds.
You got Arizona and Marquette, and then you got Texas and Kansas.
Yep.
So you got 3 2 seeds and a 1 seed.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. So in my Final Four, Baylor versus Purdue, I think that would be a great matchup, especially in Houston. I think that'd be a really heavy Baylor crowd, but I don't think anybody on Baylor has anybody. I don't think Baylor has anybody to stop anybody like Zach Edey. I don't think there's a player in the country that could stop somebody like Edey, but I would go with Purdue in that matchup to advance to the Monday night national championship game. And then the Houston versus Kansas. I think Kansas is the much better basketball team. I think Kansas is probably be the favorite in that game. It's at Houston. It's in an NRG Stadium. It's where the Texans play. Mm-hmm. I'm picking Houston, and then I'm picking Houston against Purdue because I think by this point, I think Marcus Sasser is healthy. I think he's playing at his best. I think Jamal Shedd's playing at his best. Jarris Walker is able to bang with somebody like Zach Edey. He's not near as tall as Edey, but if he's able to bang with him, cause some problems. We've seen those bigs in those national championship games not be as effective because of it's a guards game. It's a guards tournament, especially in the Final Four. We saw that with Auburn. We've seen that in the past with the past few Final Fours. I think Houston wins the national championship.
All right, pull the full thing back up.
Okay.
All right, so I've got Arizona
against Marquette.
I'm taking Arizona.
That'd be a great matchup.
It would be a great matchup. And then I've got Texas and Kansas again, and I think Kansas gets revenge and plays for their second straight title, and I think Kansas wins their second title in a row.
That would be interesting. Talk about a tone setting for Bill Self to really become one of the top, if not the top, coach that's currently coaching right now.
College basketball.
With Jim Boeheim retiring, Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski, Jay Wright, all those guys leaving. If he goes and wins back-to-back national championships, it'll be really hard to argue. And the only other guy you can argue is Tom Izzo.
Yeah, and Izzo didn't do that.
There's really not anybody close. So this will wrap up.
I love March.
Yes, this will wrap up our March Madness episode. We'll be back either maybe Friday or Saturday if Auburn does not get it done against Iowa.
We should do something Friday.
Okay, right after the game, no matter if we win or lose.
We can talk about the game and then preview the next game or preview the offseason because the offseason is a big deal right now.
Absolutely. In that preview of the offseason episode, whenever it comes, hopefully it comes in mid-April after Auburn has cut down the national championship nets.
Yeah,
I'm fantasizing here, but whenever that comes, we'll discuss transfer portal accusations, who's Auburn reaching out to,
who's come back,
who's Aiden Holloway's coming in, who's coming back and who's not. Talk about the NBA draft possibilities. We'll talk about all that. And then we've got a long offseason ahead to talk about Auburn basketball. But we are here in March. Enjoy it as it is. It is the best time in sports. It is the best time of the year. I'm excited for it. I know you're excited for it. I know you guys are excited for it as well. We will go ahead and get out of here. We'll be back later on this week to discuss Auburn's game against Iowa and hopefully preview our matchup against Houston. We'll be back then. War Eagle.
War Eagle.